dear viewers and listeners, it is always a pleasure interacting with you, and I'm hoping that you will find today's topic interesting as always. I'm Dr. Duncan Elliot Tembo. I'll be talking to you on a subject that is titled, My Time is Coming. This topic is not academic, it's not religious, rather it's meant to be a motivation to that somebody who feels like, look, I have tried and it doesn't look like anything is happening. My hope is that as we go through this topic, you will begin to connect, you will begin to find your space, and hopefully that it should induce in you that new strength to help you realize what you're supposed to be. I will use an hypothetical example of this gardener who planted baobab trees and pine trees. He started with seeds for both. He planted them and he ensured that every day they had the water, they had the conditions that they needed for them to grow. And before long, the pines sprouted and started growing. But there was no sign from the baobab tree. 1 month passed. It went into 3. The first year, second, all the way up to the 4th year, there was still no sign from the baobab. The pines had grown. They made the place look beautiful. And you see, at that point, you could be wondering, you could be asking yourself, is it worthy to continue giving attention to what is not growing when they are seeds that have proved that they can grow and they have already grown? Why not plant more of them and have that beautiful forest? However, in the 4th year, the baobab sprouted. It sprouted and started growing. And as it was growing, even more when it was grown, it lived to outgrow the pine that had grown first. It became a tree to watch. And those of you who have seen a baobab tree, you will agree with me that it's very attractive. The size itself will force you to look at it even when you do not feel like looking at it. It became too significant to be ignored. But you see, this is the same tree that had a troubled beginning. My hope is that as we look at this subject, you will begin to find your place. You know, key questions like, what was it doing during the 4 years? May be on your mind. For me, obviously, when I look at the size of the tree, I have more questions. How does it manage to stand without falling? And slowly, an idea begins to pop on my mind that it should certainly have deep roots, deep enough to be able to support the size, to be able to support that weight. And almost immediately, you will realize that when everybody thought that the baobab was not growing, it was actually growing downwards. It was growing roots. And it was necessary that it should grow the roots before it can grow upwards. Imagine that it just came out and started growing. Maybe the roots were not going to be strong enough to support the weight, and it would not be able to stand. So while everybody thought it was not growing, it was actually growing roots. Coming back to the topic, my time is coming. You see, when we are living, with other people around us, there are a lot of times when we could be pursuing the same objectives, and you find that for others, it's very smooth. Things are happening. They'll just try this, and it works. They'll perhaps try the other one. It works out. And you notice that you have to really struggle to get anything to work. Sometimes we even reach a point where we feel like, look, I have tried everything that I could. It is just not working. There are even times when we give up. But I came to encourage you that your time is coming. I would still want to refer back to the baobab and the pine. You see, the baobab had a very difficult start, perhaps as difficult as your start in a number of areas that you have tried, to an extent that an impatient gardener would have given up on it. But you see, that gardener continued giving it attention, and ultimately, it ended up being something to always look at, too significant to be ignored. I want to encourage you that, look, it doesn't matter where you start from. You could have had a difficult start, but maybe in all the difficulties that you are passing through, you are just growing roots. Do not be discouraged when you see that things are happening for others, because your time is coming. Your calling is very different from the calling of your neighbor, from the calling of your friend, and all those that surrounds you. It is for this reason that you should not compare with them. Just like the pines are very different from the baobab, so you are different from them. I know that you could have heard, you could have seen people who perhaps had troubled starts and they have ended up making it in life because the troubles itself gave them sufficient learnings, sufficient strength. It helped them to grow roots, and when they shot out of that shell, they became too significant to be ignored. If you read the Bible in 1 Chronicles chapter 4, starting from verse 9 to verse 10, you will find a story about Jabez. If I can quickly read, the Bible says, Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. Jabez called upon the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my border, and that your hand might be with me, and you will keep me from harm, so that it may not bring me pain. And God granted what he asked for. The case of Jabez is another clear story of somebody who had a troubled start. But then from the reading, we can see that despite the troubled start, when he invited God in his situation, he was never the same again. God changed his name. God extended his boundary, and he became too significant to be ignored. I am hoping that you will think of yourself the same way. No matter where you are coming from, no matter what people have said about you, what they believe about you, I am praying that your situation should change. May you have that better finish, to an extent that people should be able to stand and say, hey, where they started from. Because the starting doesn't matter, but where you are going, that's what matters. As I conclude this topic, the gardener did not give up on the baobab, even when there was no sign. Your God who created you, who gives you the opportunities that you need, who helps you develop the roots to be able to stand the weather, will not give up on you. Don't give up on yourself, because God will never give up on you. May God richly bless you. and looking forward to interacting with you in the next session. Thank you.